the quorum for the business meeting shall be 12 members of the society physically present. And so therefore the question is to what the function and meaning of physically present is. This language was added to the Constitution in 1988 with initial passage in 1987. The amendment received a combined total of 3 minutes of discussion time, none of which appears to have been devoted to the meaning of the word physically. Nor does the rationale printed in the agenda of those business meetings indicate any intention other than to require a minimum attendance for the business meeting to become quorate. Previously, quorum was just however many people were in attendance. Thus, we do not have any guidance from the official record as to how to interpret this language. In trying to understand the function of the word physically in this section, I keep coming back to the question of physically present where. Physically present in some particular room, but not in other rooms? Because everyone at this meeting right now is presumably physically present somewhere. If you are a ghost or a spirit, let me know. And if it does mean in some particular room, which room? If we were in person and I got COVID and presided over Zoom, would 11 other people need to crowd into my hotel room? If the meeting were hybrid and the head table were broadcasting from a separate room, which room would be the one that counts? At what point does the definitely physical location of members cross the boundary into no longer being physically present? Without additional language in the Constitution defining what does and does not qualify as physically present, I can't interpret the meaning of this phrase in that manner because I cannot come up with an interpretation that makes sense. Thus, my best interpretation is this. The function of the word physically, to the extent that it has one in 5.1.5, seems to mean at the location of the meeting, meaning not just members present at the convention, but members present at the location of the business meeting. As this year's business meeting is being held online, presence at the location of the meeting would be those present on the meeting platform, and therefore quorum is satisfied. And so now I'm going to recognize Cliff Dunn for a speech against my ruling.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. And by the way, thank you for elaborating.
One moment, Cliff. Warren, can you go ahead and stop sharing your screen? Sorry, go ahead, Cliff.
Okay. Thank you, Mixed Chair, for that very erudite explanation of your reasoning. I've got a couple of problems with this, obviously. First of all, I'll just attack the point of physically present. Physical presence is almost always if not always understood as being physically present somewhere. If mere presence on the planet Earth was sufficient, physical presence would not have been indicated. I would point out, in fact, that last year at Glasgow, if the chair's ruling is correct, there was no reason that the members of the top table who did in fact get COVID would not have been able to keep participating from their hotel rooms by way of some sort of a video link. That was not done, and Mixed Chair, you were presiding at the time. As to the question of the dates of the convention, first of all, I will point to the Seattle website, which I have pulled up on my screen right now, which states that the convention starts on August 13th to 17th and runs through the 17th. So by the convention's own understanding of these of when the convention is per their website, we are not at the convention for another 6 weeks or so. Second, I would point out that there was no change made to the site selection timeline, which would have also needed to be advanced by about 6 weeks if we were already quote unquote at the convention. So this reads as a lot of after the fact reasoning that is being used to justify a decision that the convention committee wished to take. I am additionally concerned that this sort of broad interpretation is going to render us less a democracy and more an experimental adhocracy. I would additionally point out that the convention, while there is definitely precedent for conventions changing their dates, it is manifestly unfair to numerous people who made plans to attend other conventions or carry on other trips prior to the Worldcon, who were then, I know several people are in Florida. I mean, several people are in Europe. I know some people are otherwise unable to attend because of tech issues and so on and so forth. And yes, there's always the question of whose ox is being gored, but this was just done to people without any broader consultation. So In addition to the fact that I believe this is clearly unconstitutional by any plain reading of the Constitution and by the convention's own interpretation of its own dates, it is also a bad idea and will set a very uncomfortable precedent going forward that I think will bite us later. I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against the ruling of the chair. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Ron Oakes for a speech in favor of my ruling. And then after that, I will be recognizing Kayla Allen for a speech against my ruling. Ron, we can go ahead and get Ron unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Right. I will point out that regarding the start of the convention dates, Seattle 2025 has been functioning as a convention since around the 1st of January when they opened Hugo nominations. So in many ways, Seattle 2025 has been Worldcon since at least January 1st, 2025, if not since a date in August of 2024. And so as far as stating the dates of when the convention is functioning.
Ron, I do believe that people are having troubles understanding you. If you can just get closer to your microphone.
Okay, let's try that. Yeah, I believe that the convention has been functioning since at least January 2025 when Hugo nominations started. That was the beginning of its functions. If not earlier, at the close of the previous Worldcon, when the gavel was handed over to the chair. So I think as far as the temporal issue, I think we can clearly state that the convention is already functioning as a convention. Further, the current definition, of the convention in the Constitution, I think can clearly be interpreted as the functions of the operation of Seattle 2025 as the corporate operator of WSFS, which again, that started at least with the closing of the last convention. So the fact that the function, the activities of Worldcon do not start until August 13th does not mean the business of Worldcon has not already started. And this is part of the business of Worldcon, not necessarily the convention activities of Worldcon. This is a WSFS operation, not a convention operation, and it should be considered part of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I am going to go ahead and, as I said, recognize Kayla Allen for a speech against my ruling, and then I will be recognizing Gary Blogg for a speech in favor. Kayla?
Thank you. Just a moment, please. Just a moment, please.
How do I mute this? How do I mute this?
There are multiple people in this room and there are speakers who
Yep.
will talk.
We go ahead and mute Kayla Allen, and I'm going to go ahead and recognize Kevin Hewitt for a speech against while Kayla gets their audio sorted out. And then like I said, I'll be recognizing Gary Blogg for a speech in favor. Kevin? Kevin, you should be seeing a pop-up that you've been asked to unmute. So you can unmute your audio and go ahead and speak.
Oh, sorry. It is all learning curve. Merriam-Webster defines virtual meaning online or digital, not in person. In person typically means something happens physically in the same location, while virtual means it happens digitally, often through a computer or other device. Therefore, I view that you're ruling that this virtual meeting, which is what it's called in all the documentation, does not meet the quorum requirement of being in person with at least 12 people. And that is my statement against your ruling. Over.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead.
We have hit the time limit for speeches in favor.
Okay, so we've had 7 minutes of speeches in favor. Okay. So time to speak in favor has expired. Let's see.
We have a minute and 30 seconds left for time against.
Okay, we have a minute and 30 seconds left for time against. Kayla, if you would like to go ahead and speak. You should see a pop-up. There you go.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Mixed Chair. My name is Kayla Allen. My pronouns are she, her. I have 2 arguments opposing the chair's ruling. The first one is the plain meaning of every past Worldcon business meeting that has ever been held. The precedent of the entire World Science Fiction Society has always been that the business meeting consists of the people meeting in the same physical location, not online. And this precedent has been ignored completely, which I find very frustrating because it goes against all past precedent. Had the convention wished to establish such special rules, which they may or may not have the right to do, I believe it should have been stated much further in advance, possibly as early as when they were bidding. The second thing I would refer to is section 6.3 of the WSFS Constitution, which to my knowledge, the Worldcon does not have the right to override, that says that this section shall not be interpreted to allow remote participation or proxy voting at the business meeting. It has been the legislative history of our rules to say that the meeting must be held in person in a single place. Our own parliamentary authority, which does talk about the possibility of such meetings.
We have hit time.
Okay. I thank you. I yield.
Okay. So time in favor and against has lapsed. Sorry, I'm just checking the high priority queue to see. So I see another point of order on the same matter. See multiple points of order on the same matter. Okay. I do see, okay, there's a parliamentary inquiry of if the appeal is sustained, can we pivot this to an advisory meeting? We could, that's very much a thing that a hypothetical that we'll address after the vote has happened. Okay, and I'm just checking to make sure. Okay, so as I said, time in favor and against has lapsed. We do have 1 person still wishing to speak in favor and 2 people wishing to speak against. So I'm just checking to see if there's any requests coming in for anything like extending debate, and I don't see anything. Okay, so it is my prerogative as the chair to speak again before we move to a vote. So I think I laid out my reasoning quite clearly in my rulings. To respond to a few things that have been said, I agree that physically present does not just mean physically present anywhere on earth. I believe it means present at the location of the meeting. So it's the people in attendance at the meeting who matter in terms of counting for quorum. There was a concern posed about the site selection deadline. The phrasing in the Constitution is no more than 180 days before the official opening of the convention. So even if the convention taking on the function of the business meeting were to be the official opening of the convention, that would not bring Seattle out of compliance with the Constitution in terms of the site selection deadline. And then regarding section 6.3 of the Constitution, section 6.3 clearly states that this section shall not be interpreted to require that elections be conducted electronically, nor interpreted to allow remote participation in the business meeting. So if there were a rule elsewhere in the Constitution that disallowed remote participation, what this means is that section 6.3 shall not be used to interpret differently. But I'm not interpreting anything based on 6.3. I'm interpreting based on the complete lack of anything disallowing a virtual meeting in the rest of the Constitution. The rest of the Constitution is silent on it, and therefore it is the role of the administering convention to interpret the Constitution and make choices, and to choose to do a thing that the convention understands to be allowed and in compliance with the Constitution is certainly within the authority of the convention to do. So that is, I think, everything that I have to say. And so we are going to go ahead and I move to a vote on this. So the matter before us is whether to sustain the ruling of the chair that the online meeting is in order and is allowed under the WSFS Constitution, and that the meeting is quorate. So if we can go ahead and open the vote on the appeal of the ruling of the presiding officer. Okay, let's go ahead and close the vote, because I'm not seeing anything else coming in. Okay, with 102 in favor of the ruling of the chair and 46 against, the ruling of the chair is sustained, and this meeting is considered to be in order. Okay. So we are now going to move into the actual business that is ahead of us. Normally, we would begin by getting verbal reports from conventions that submitted financial reports and from committees. However, due to the large amount of business that we have to tackle, we are not going to be taking verbal reports except for at the next meeting, which is when we'll be handling the report from the investigation committee on the 2023 Hugo Awards. You can review the committee reports and financial reports in the appendices of the agenda, which begin on page 56. We did not have any questions submitted for any of the reports, so that's why we didn't publish any answers to those non-existent questions. Hold on, I'm seeing something in the queue. Oh, looks like the parliamentarian is, oh, I see it now. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and recognize Cliff Dunn for a parliamentary inquiry. Cliff Dunn,
yes,
yep.
Mixed Chair, I wish to merely ask how the chair is going to handle motions to reconsider, given that while we are having a recorded numbers vote, individual votes are anonymous at this point. Obviously, I think if somebody spoke on one side or the other, that would clearly indicate where they were. But given that roughly 90% of the business meeting attendees did not speak either way,
Correct.
how is that going to be handled?
So just as when we have an in-person meeting, when we have a voice vote, we don't know who voted in favor or against. And even when we take a hand vote, it's not like well, maybe somebody is writing down how every single person voted, but I'm certainly not at the head table. And so our practice is generally that we trust people to tell the truth about whether or not they voted in favor And if somebody has a compelling reason to object that they believe that somebody did not vote in favor, they can do so. Does that answer your question? Great, thank you. Okay. So, given that we are not going to be having verbal reports on committees and financial reports, we are going to go ahead and move to our first item of business, which is going to be taking nominations for the Mark Protection Committee. I'm going to make sure that the nominate option is now available, and it is. Okay. So Kevin Stanley, Nicholas White, and Ben Yallow's terms on the MPC end this year. And so we are electing folks for those 3 positions, which is for a 3-year term, which will end in 2028. So the nominate option is available to select in the speaker pool queue. And so you can submit names that way. I will just be reading the names out rather than recognizing folks. Make sure to put the text if you're nominating in that text field. Let's see. Okay, so I see a nomination for Bruce Farr, for Ron Oakes, for Cliff Dunn, and I will be reading these out again, and I believe that Warren is going to be getting a screen share up soon with these names. I see Alan Bond, Nicholas White, Anne-Marie Rudolph, I see a nomination for Kayla Allen, for Linda Ross Mansfield, for John Lawrence. I don't even remember the last time we've had this many people nominated. For Lisa Hertel, see, for Chris Rose, for Olav Rockney. And I do have a note that Kayla Allen is declining nomination.
I cannot be nominated. I am already in the middle of an MPC term.
That's fair. Okay, so Olav Rockney is also declining nomination. I also see a nomination for Kevin Black and for Linda Deneroff. Okay. Let me scroll through here again and see if I'm missing anyone. Okay. So to be clear, the folks that we've had nominated are Bruce Farr, Ron Oakes, Cliff Dunn, Alan Bond, Nicholas White, Anne-Marie Rudolph, Linda Ross Mansfield, John Lawrence, Lisa Hertel, Chris Rose, Kevin Black, and Linda Deneroff. If anyone would wish to nominate anybody else, please go ahead and do so. Oh, yep, I'm seeing it pointed out that Linda is also a currently seated member, so presumably can't be nominated for the same reason as Olav. I am also seeing a request to see a list of who is currently on the MPC. I can grab that from the agenda. Where is it? There we go. Okay, so according to the list provided in the committee report from the MPC, and so I hope they know who's on their committee. The current membership is Judy Bemis through 2026, Alan Bond appointed by Seattle, Joni Dashoff through 2026, Linda Deneroff through 2027, Donald Eastlake through 2027, Dave Ennis appointed by the Buffalo NASFIC, Olav Rockney through 2027, Linda Ross Mansfield appointed by Pemicon, Chen Shi appointed by Chengdu, and then I already listed Kevin Stanley, Nicholas White, and Ben Yallow as rolling off. Alyssa Wales appointed by Glasgow, Mike Wilmoth through 2026. That is the current membership for the Mark Protection Committee. Okay, I see a few more nominations that have come in. So I see nominations for John Coxon, for Warren Buff, and for Perrianne Lurie.
In case anyone didn't see it, I'm declining.
Okay, Warren Buff is declining nomination. It's no. Going to give folks a little bit more time if they want to make another. Perrianne Lurie is also declining nomination. I do see a hand raised in the Zoom, but I don't see a corresponding request. So if you have a speaking request, please go ahead and submit it. For those wondering, because Linda Ross Mansfield was in the list of folks that I read off, but was also nominated. Linda is appointed by a convention, and so can run for a elected seat, and then the convention would appoint someone else in case there's any lack of clarity on that. John Lawrence and John Coxon are indicating that they wish to decline their nomination. See. We don't see any other requests coming in. I'm going to give you all a little bit more. Okay, and I do see a nomination for Alana Vincent that has just come in. Okay, so I'm not seeing any other requests coming in. And so we are going to go ahead and close nominations. Warren, if you are able to share that next slide. So if you are, and I'll read this list out again. So the nominees were Bruce Farr, Ron Oakes, Cliff Dunn, Alan Bond, Nicholas White, Anne Marie Rudolph, Linda Ross Mansfield, Lisa Hertel, Chris Rose, Kevin Black, and Alana Vincent. If you are somebody who has been nominated, please email bm-candidate@seattleinto2025.org by 3 hours prior to the start of the July 19th session with your consent to nomination. We do plan to hold elections at that meeting. And the vote, we plan to have the vote to be held open for at least 24 hours after the conclusion of that meeting to allow folks who aren't able to attend for religious, time zone, or other constraints to still be able to vote. You can also email us a brief statement of no more than 300 words about why you would like to be elected, which we will post in that business meeting Discord for folks to read to be able to get a sense for who you are, since we don't all know each other. And I hope that answers the questions that I've seen come through about asking the nominees to tell us about themselves. Okay. So, moving on from the Mark Protection Committee, we are going to take care of reauthorizing all the standing committees at once, or we're going to try to do that at least. Is there any objection to continuing the Nitpicking and Fly Specking Committee, the Worldcon Runners Guide Editorial Committee, and the Formalization of Long List Entries Committee as currently constituted? Okay, seeing no objections, those committees are reauthorized and continued. Next, we're going to see if we can do this. And then we will be going on a break after this next item. Is there any objection to the adoption of D.4, continuation of the business meeting study group, and D.5, continuation of the Hugo Administration Process Committee? Is there any objection to adopting D.4 and D.5? I do see an objection. Okay. So given that, we will go ahead and handle those resolutions with the other resolutions when they come up in a little bit. And with that, we are going to go ahead and take our wait, hold on. I've gotten time zones confused. We've only been in the meeting for an hour, not 2 hours, right? Okay, people are nodding at me. Great. Sorry. This is the difficulty of existing in multiple time zones at once. Never mind. We're not going on a break quite yet. I'm really sorry about that. Okay. We'll be going on a break in approximately 45 minutes, rather. Okay. So the next items of business for us are the standing rule changes, which can be found starting on page 16 of your agenda. So Warren, can you go ahead and get that slide up with those debate times? Okay, great. I am proposing the following debate times for these items. As a reminder, the way we set debate times is that I propose a debate time, then I ask if there's any objection. If someone objects to the debate time I've proposed, we'll then take suggestions from we'll then have an immediate vote on my suggestion. If there's not a majority in favor, then we'll take suggestions from the floor and vote on those suggestions. Please note when it comes to debate times that debate times are not real time. These might seem quite short, but generally every minute of debate time is about 2 to 3 minutes of real time. That was not true on the debate of the appeal because we didn't have like subsidiary emotions, but as we take up the proposals in the agenda, that will generally be the case. So I am recommending for C.1, extend business meeting agenda deadline 4 minutes. For C.2, dude, where's my motion? 4 minutes. Well, for all of these, it's 4 minutes. For C.3, reconsideration, And for C.4, committees include stakeholders. All of these I'm suggesting 4 minutes. And then C.5 will be taken up during executive session at the next meeting, and we will set the debate time then. So is there any objection to the proposed debate times for the standing rule changes? Okay, I do not see any objections. So the debate time of 4 minutes for each item is adopted. And so we will move into our first item, which is C.1. As a note, if you are the maker of a proposal, or you're going to be making the first speech in favor of a motion on behalf of the maker, please go ahead and submit a request to speak for a speech in favor when we get to your item, and put like first speech or something in the text field. That will assist me in knowing who to recognize in case it isn't the maker of the motion. If I don't see any requests, I'll attempt to recognize the maker of the motion. And if they are not here, I will move on to recognizing someone who wishes to speak in favor. So the current item of business before us is C.1. And so I'm going to recognize Chris Hensley, the maker of the motion, for a speech in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. So last year's business meeting, we had a record amount of new business, and it not even close to what previous business was. And this year, we have even more new business submitted to the meeting. On top of that, under the rules, 11 Worldcons were expected to submit financial reports because their books are still open. And as is the nature of fandom, all of this new business and reports come in the last 2 days. Given the increased amount of business, the large number of financial reports, the reality and the amount of work it takes to rectify and work with members and get everything ready for the business meeting, 7 days is just not a sufficient time frame for the business meeting as it currently is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. Is there anyone wishing to speak against? And Warren, let's go ahead and, well, so we have a request about folks who are wanting to see the speaker and not the slide. You can select the I think it's called side-by-side speaker view, I believe is what it's called, and then you can resize how much real estate those things take up, I believe. But we wanted to keep the text up there for folks who have difficulties following along. I'm not seeing any other speeches in favor or against. I'll go ahead and give you all a little bit more time to see if somebody wants to speak. Okay, not seeing anybody else wishing to speak. We will go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of C.1. Okay, let's go ahead and close the vote. So with 125 in favor and 6 against, C.1 passes and is adopted. And as a reminder, standing rule changes go into effect at the end of the last business meeting. Technically the end of the convention, but unless we vote by a 2/3 majority to have it take effect immediately, obviously there'd be no point to making C.1 take effect immediately, since it refers to things that have already happened. Okay. So the next item ahead of us is C.2. Dude, where's my motion, which can be found on page 17 of your agenda. As a reminder, debate time was set for 4 minutes. And I will go ahead and recognize Cliff Dunn, the maker of the motion, to go ahead and make a speech in favor.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. I'll be very brief. Over the years, there have been a number of committees that have evaporated, failed to report, or have reported out and very clearly not taken up some of the items that were referred to them. And this can result in multiple years being lost on an effort. So this is just an attempt to ensure that if either the committee that something is sent to vanishes, or the business is not, the stuff is not even considered that's been sent to it, that the submitters of the original motion can submit new business to reattack their topic and push forward with things rather than losing a second year.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Mark Godden for a speech against. So you can go ahead and raise your hand to be unmuted in the Zoom. And then I will be recognizing Kevin Black after that. But first, I'll recognize Mark Godden.
Mark Godden, he, him, mix presiding officer. I speak against this motion for 2 reasons. First, on a core principle for deliberative assemblies of organizations such as this society, once an item of business is on the agenda of a business meeting, it no longer belongs to the people who wrote it, or submitted it, or even moved it, but rather to the whole society, as represented by all members of the meeting. Second, this motion is aimed in the wrong direction to help allay possible issues with committees. Instead of making note after the fact, what is needed are measures that provide guidance and support to committees so that they can fulfill the tasks which the business meeting has given to them. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'm going to recognize Kevin Black.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. Am I on?
You're good.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. I agree with the previous speaker, but I also oppose this motion for the following reason, is that the text requiring the presiding officer to state what reports do not properly account for the disposition of items referred to it requires the presiding officer to comment on the content, which is not the role of the presiding officer, and also increases the demands and pressures on that position. It's the role of the presiding officer to preside neutrally and not to state approval or disapproval of submissions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was
Mixed Chairperson, we just had 2 speeches against in a row.
Yes,
Did we
because
speak in favor?
Yep, because there was not anybody wishing to speak in favor. Yep. Kevin, did you also have an amendment that you had wanted to offer, because that would be in order at this time? Can you unmute Kevin again?
Yes, if it is in order, I would make a motion to strike all of the material, all of the amendatory material after the phrase, as well as a list of any committees that failed to submit a report by the deadline, and then to strike all amendatory material after the word deadline. If that strikeout was made, then I would be able to support this motion.
Okay, so Warren's going to try and get that on the screen. Timekeeper, how much total time do we have remaining on this item?
We have a total of 1 minute and 45 remaining.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, could you repeat what you were trying to strike there?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm trying to strike everything after the word deadline. All the amendatory material after the word deadline. So we're keeping that first phrase and striking everything else, including 7.6.1.
Okay, so you want to strike or whose report did not. You want to strike that clause and strike the new 7.6.1, but you want to keep as well as a list of any committees that failed to submit a report by the deadline.
Yes,
Correct?
that would be my.
Great. Okay, so the amendment is to strike or whose report did not properly account for the disposition of items referred to it as required in Standing Rule 7.6.1, and to strike the entirety of the new 7.6.1. I see multiple hands, so I'm going to take those as a second to the amendment. And so the item before us is the Black amendment to C.2. We have a total of a minute 45 in debate time remaining. And so that time will be, we're going to call it a minute 30, 1.5 minutes to make the timekeeper's life a little easier. And we will go ahead and split that time equally for the amendment. So there will be 45 seconds in favor of the amendment and 45. You know what? Let's be a little nicer. Is there any objection to having the total amount of debate time for the amendment being 2 minutes for a minute on each side? Okay, seeing no objection, the debate time for the amendment is set to 2 minutes. So if we can go ahead and open up that second order speaking pool for the moderators, is there anybody wishing to submit is there anybody wishing to speak in favor or against the amendment? Oh, yeah. Sorry, Kevin Black. I should have. Obviously, you get to speak in favor of it as the maker of it. So yeah, we can go ahead and recognize Kevin Black again.
I've already said it, but I've already stated the reasons, and I'd just say again, I would support this if with this amendment. Otherwise, I will be voting against.
Okay, thank you. That is a speech in favor of the amendment. See if there's anybody else wishing to speak. I do see a request to speak that is a wishing to amend the amendment. Second order amendments are not in order according to our standing rules. But this, I believe the text of that amendment would be allowable after we dispense with this amendment. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and recognize Cliff Dunn for a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would like to move to divide the question on this between the amendments to 4.4 and the striking of 7.6.1. That's the motion. I would speak to that if permissible.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm understanding, you are wanting to divide the amendment into first whether or not to strike the or whose report clause, and then separate from that, the entirety of 7.6.1. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I would take the view that if the yes, that is correct.
I think maybe what you were trying to say is that if we don't strike the or whose report clause, but we do strike 7.6.1, that you would want to restrike the or whose report clause because it refers to a standing rule that isn't there.
I I'm happy to strike the or whose report clause entirely, but I think 7.6.1 requiring a bit more basically telling the committees to say what they were told to report on still stands reasonably.
Okay. I'm going to ask my parliamentarian to hop into the other voice chat really quickly, and I'm going to consult with my staff really quickly just to make sure that this division is doable. One moment. Hello, I'm back. Okay, so we've determined that this is in order. So the motion is to divide the amendment. And so in order to keep things in an order that works, should the division pass, we would vote first on whether or not to strike the new 7.6.1. And then we would vote on whether or not to strike or whose report did not properly account. So the item before us is whether to divide the Black amendment to C.2 to basically to vote on the two strikings separately. Is there a second to the division of the question? I do see a second. I see multiple seconds. Thank you. We can go ahead and have hands lowered. Okay, so the item before us is the division of the Black amendment to C.2. So speaker moderators will go ahead and open up that third order speaking pool. Olav, how much time do we have remaining on the amendment?
1 minute and 50 seconds. The speech in favor was very short.
Okay, so that time is going to be split evenly on the question of the division. Okay, I'm going to Cliff, do you wish to speak to dividing the question any more than you already did? If so, please go ahead and raise your hand in Zoom. Okay, not seeing that. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Kevin Black for a speech against dividing the question, and then I will recognize Kate Secor for a speech in favor of dividing the question.
Hi, I'm also, I didn't speak directly to it, but I don't think 7.6.1 is appropriate. I think it's up to a committee to determine the format of their reports. And I think maybe an advisory that it's good practice to do this would be fine, but it is not for this body to control the reports submitted by committees. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm now going to recognize Kate Secor for a speech in favor. And then I will be recognizing Ron Oakes after that, unless we have somebody else wishing to speak against. Kate?
I think that these are totally separable. 7.6.1 just says, if you're a committee and you file a report, you should tell us what business was referred to you. I think that's really reasonable. From year to year, you know, I don't remember what exactly we referred to any given committee, and it would be nice for them to remind us so that when we see the report, we can say, oh yeah, here's how they addressed XYZ concern.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. I still don't see anybody wishing to speak against. And so I'm going to recognize Ron Oakes for a speech in favor of the division.
25 seconds for this.
I withdrew my request to speak.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, sometimes I get to my bit before everybody else gets to theirs. Okay. Okay. So not seeing anybody else wish to speak, we're going to go ahead and move to a vote. So to be clear, the vote is to divide the Black amendment into two questions. So the first question, which would be Black Amendment A, would be whether or not to strike the new 7.6.1 from the proposal. The second question, so after should the division succeed, then after we would vote on whether or not to strike 7.6.1. We would vote on whether or not to strike or whose report did not properly account, etc. So the item before us currently is just whether to divide this amendment into 2 votes. It's not about whether or not you're in favor of either part of it, but just whether or not you want to divide the amendment into 2 questions. Okay, so we could go ahead and open the vote on the division of the Black amendment. Okay, we can go ahead and close the poll. And with 97 in favor and 27 against, the division passes. And so the item before us is now going to be Black Amendment A, which is just whether or not to strike the new 7.6.1. So the item before us is the Black Amendment A, striking the new 7.6.1 from the proposal. Olaf, how much time do we have in total remaining?
From Dude, Where's My Motion or from the Black Amendment?
From the Black Amendment.
Remaining 1 minute and 25 seconds.
Okay. So that time is going to be split evenly for Amendment A, and then if there's time remaining after that for Amendment B. So we're going to go back to that second order priority pool. I'm going to recognize Kate Secor for a motion.
Mixed Chair, I move to extend debate by 4 minutes.
Okay. Are you wanting to extend it on like the entire stack or just like a portion of it?
The entire
Sorry, okay, so
stack.
like if we don't use all of the new 4 minutes on the amendment, it would still be available for the underlying
Yes, please.
motion. Okay. Yes, that's what I was asking. Okay. I see a second for the motion to extend debate by 4 minutes. Okay. So let me just ask first, is there any objection to extending debate by 4 minutes? If you do not wish to extend debate by 4 minutes, please raise your hand. Okay, I do see an objection, so we're going to go ahead and move to a vote. So the vote is whether or not to extend debate by 4 minutes. If we can go ahead and open up the poll. And I should have clarified that the motion to extend debate is neither debatable nor amendable, which is why we moved immediately to a vote. And this does require a 2/3 majority to pass. My apologies. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. Okay, we can close the poll, the vote rather. I'm going to be consistent in my phrasing. Okay, so with 56 in favor and 61 against, the motion to extend debate fails. So we are still at our underlying, I believe it was like 1 minute and 15 seconds or something like that of debate time. Okay, so the item before us is the Amendment A of the the Black Amendment A to C.2, which is to strike the new 7.6.1 from the proposal. I'm I see somebody wishing to speak against, so I'm going to recognize Ron Oak for a speech against.
Okay, I'll be quick about this. I believe it is perfectly within the purview of the business meeting and the standing rules to instruct committees on what they can include in their report. And as Kate pointed out in her speech on splitting the motion, I believe this is a very reasonable thing to include on committee reports, on committees that were formed based on specific motions, that they at least provide a summary of what they were supposed to be reporting on. I yield.
Okay, that was a speech against the amendment, and sort of a speech in favor of the proposed text, just so that we're clear, because I got confused for a second there. Okay, I do see somebody wishing to speak in favor, so I'm going to recognize Elizabeth Kovar, Elizabeth Kovar for a speech in favor of the of Black Amendment A.
I've now lost track of where we are on this, but we're debating closing everything after report by the deadline, or we're deleting.
Go ahead and pause the time for a second, Olaf. Okay, so to be clear, the item currently in front of us. So the Black Amendment was divided into two questions. So right now we are only voting or discussing and then voting on the portion of the amendment that would strike the new 7.6.1. So C.2, dude, where's my motion, includes adding a new section to our standing rules, 7.6.1, as well as adding some additional text. The Black Amendment A is to strike that new 7.6.1 from the proposal. So should this amendment pass, the proposal will read, you see what's on your screen. So 4.4, availability of BM materials, should Black Amendment A pass, then we would be only at what you see in 4.4. And then we would, because we divided the question, then we have to vote on whether or not we're actually amending 4.4 that way. But first, we're deciding whether or not we want to keep 7.6.1 in the proposal. Okay, do you still wish to speak in favor of Black Amendment A? If so, go ahead and raise your hand in the Zoom. Or,
no.
sorry, you're still muted too. Okay, thank you. Okay. If there's anybody else wishing to speak on the Black Amendment A, please go ahead and enter that request. Okay, I'm not seeing any. So we will move to a vote on the Black Amendment A. And so to be clear, this is a question. The question is whether to strike the new 7.6.1 from the proposal C.2. So if this amendment passes, then 7.6.1 would be struck from C.2. And then we will vote on the second half of the Black Amendment, which was striking the Ors Who Report section. So the item before us is whether or not to strike the new 7.6.1 from the proposal. We can go ahead and open the vote. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. And with 32 in favor and 77 against, the amendment does not pass. And so we are not striking 7.6.1. Yep. And so you can now see that reflected on the screen. And so we are now moving to the item is Black Amendment B, which is to strike or whose report did not properly account for the disposition of items referred to it as required in Standing Rule 7.6.1 from Rule 4.4. So we voted and decided to keep the new 7.6.1 in the proposal. And so now the question is whether or not to strike from the new language in 4.4 the requirement that the agenda will list those committees that didn't account for that disposition in 7.6.1. Okay. Is there any, so the current item, just to be clear again, is Black Amendment B. That's what we're calling that. And so we're going to still be using that second order cue for my moderators. So if there's anybody wishing to speak, please do so. Okay. I do have a motion to call the question. Let me check our substantive debate rule really quick. Okay. So per our rules, it is not in order to call the question because we have not had, well, you know what? I think we have had substantive debate on this question within the other debates. So is there, so Alan Bond has moved to call the question. Is there a second? Okay, I do see hands raised. And as a reminder, per the additional rules that we created, when I recognize somebody to call the question from the pool, that functions as the calling of the question rather than needing to recognize them and have them come off mute and everything. Also, per our rules, since the question has been called, I'm going to give you all a report on where the speaker pool stands. So we have 2 folks wishing to speak in favor of Black Amendment B, no speeches against, and no other items, or no other requests to speak on Black Amendment B. So the question before us is whether to end debate on Black Amendment B and move immediately to a vote. This does require a 2/3 majority and is neither debatable nor amendable. So we can go ahead and open the vote. So once again, to be clear, the vote is on whether to end debate on Black Amendment B. So we can go ahead and vote. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. So with 106 in favor and 14 against, the motion to end debate passes. And so we will move immediately to a vote on Black Amendment B. So to be clear, this amendment would strike the or whose report clause from the proposal. And you can see that reflected on the slide that is being shared in the Zoom. Okay, so we can go ahead and open the vote on Black Amendment B. You can go ahead and vote. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. By 87 to 23, the amendment passes, and so the or whose report clause is stricken from the addition to 4.4. And so we are back to the underlying proposal as amended. So we're back to C.2, where 4.4 would now read in part, reports submitted to the business meeting before the deadline established in 5.1.6 of the WSFS Constitution, as well as a list of any committees that failed to submit a report by the deadline, shall be made generally available, and it continues on. And then still with the addition of the new 7.6.1. Olaf, how much time, if any, do we have remaining?
We have 1 minute and 20 seconds remaining in favor and 25 seconds remaining against.
Okay, so we have some time on both sides. And we are going to go back to the regular speaking pool for moderators. Okay. I am going to recognize Linda Deneroff for a speech against. And then I'm going to recognize Kevin Hewitt after that. Linda?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
I don't remember why I wanted to speak, so just ignore it.
Okay. You don't need to take that out of the time, Olaf. Okay. So
I know it's. Huh?
Can
I
go
just
ahead
pulled
and
a what?
thank you. And then we will go ahead and, as I said, recognize Kevin Hewitt. Kevin, if you can go ahead and see your hand raised.
I withdraw my proposed amendment to this.
Okay.
Due to the previous actions.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So the item before us is still the amended C.2. I do see multiple requests to end debate in the speaking pool. But currently I don't have anybody wishing to speak against. So, or sorry, speak at all. So I'm just going to give it a couple more seconds to see if there's anybody wishing to speak on C.2. And if not, we will move to a vote. Okay, it doesn't look like there is anybody else still wishing to speak on C.2. So we can go ahead and archive those requests to end debate, and we will move to a vote. The item before us that we are voting on is the adoption of the amended C.2, and we can go ahead and open the vote. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the poll, the vote. So with 101 in favor and 18 against, C.2 as amended passes and is adopted and will be added to the standing rules at the end of this Worldcon. Once again, it wouldn't really make a lot of sense to try and put this into effect immediately. We are at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. Part of me wants to keep going because I really like the idea of taking the break after we're done with the standing rules, but I don't know how long C.3 and C.4 are going to take. So in order to guarantee that they take basically no time, we're going to go ahead and take our break now. And so we are going to be on recess until 11 a.m. Pacific. So in 15, I think technically 16 minutes from now. And we will reconvene at that time. Thank you. Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started again. So the next item before us, actually, sorry, before we get started, I have been asked to clarify for those of you who are on mobile. So for you all, voting will not necessarily pop up and take over your screen. Rather, you should see a pop-up at the bottom of your screen that you can then use to vote. So you still should be seeing an automatic pop-up that will get you to the voting, but it I believe it doesn't take over your entire Lumi platform the way that it does on desktop. Okay, so the next item that we have is C.3, reconsideration, which is on page 18 of your agenda. Debate time at this item has been set for 4 minutes. Is Joshua Kerngold as the maker of the motion? If you would like to speak to it, please go ahead and raise your hand. Otherwise, okay, I do see. Okay, if we can go ahead and get Josh unmuted, you can go ahead and speak in favor of C.3. I am not hearing Joshua. Are other folks?
I am not.
Okay, Joshua, can you please make sure you are unmuted in the Zoom? So can you please make sure that your browser has recognized your microphone? No, we are still not able to hear you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and recognize Cliff Dunn as one of the other makers for a speech in favor. And if you can work on getting your microphone sorted out. Well, I hear something now. Is that Joshua?
Yeah, I'm hearing something as well.
Wait, can you hear anything now?
Joshua,
Yes,
now we
yes,
can
we
hear
can.
You. Yep.
Okay,
I'll remute.
nothing changed. I have no idea. Windows permissions, no idea. Okay, can I talk now?
Probably that. You can talk now.
Okay. So, the motion is worded in a somewhat confusing way. If someone wants to amend it so that it's complete in and of itself, that would be fantastic. But in short, under Robert's rules, no one can motion to reconsider something unless they were on the prevailing side at the time. But when we change who's at what meetings at any given time, and we have new people potentially coming in who really care about something, we have situations where it can be out of order for somebody to change to request the meeting, change what they did, even if they have a majority, because they weren't in the room when the thing passed, and therefore they don't have a 2/3 to suspend the rules. And therefore they have no standing to do so. What this would do is say that somebody who isn't in the room at the time that the meeting does something has standing just as if they were in the prevailing side. Joshua Cronengold, he, him.
All right. Thank you. That was a speech in favor. I'm going to recognize Nicholas White for a speech against, and then I'll recognize Cliff Dunn for a speech in favor. And then I'll be recognizing Kevin Black for another speech against. So Nicholas White.
Thank you very much, Mixed Chairperson. Am I visible and audible?
Yep, you're good.
Good, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for the way that you've been moderating this meeting. And secondly, I'm really glad that we're doing this virtually rather than wasting time at the actual convention doing it.
I am going to ask you to keep your remarks to things germane to this motion.
Okay, well, one thing that's germane to this motion is that we deal with it swiftly, unlike the last motion. I think this motion is well-intentioned but badly written. I don't think that we should be rewriting history. To me, the obvious solution would be to say that those who voted in favor of the prevailing side should not, sorry, those who voted against the prevailing side in the previous thing should not be therefore able to reconsider it. I would like to kick this back to the proposers to think about it again, and I would not want to waste any more time this evening discussing it. So I think let's vote against it now, and let's kick it back to the people who propose it. And I must say, I've personally been a victim of this particular bit of the rules in the past myself, as anybody who's watched the Chengdu business meeting video will be well aware. But I just don't think this is the way to deal with it. So please, let's just vote against, get out of the way, and get on with other stuff. Thank you, Mixed Chairperson.
Thank you. Really quickly, Nicholas, I just want to be clear. You're not wishing to actually make a motion to amend or to move to refer to committee. You're just speaking against it. I'm
deeply opposed to any such move, Mixed Chair. I think we should just vote against this resolution and get rid of it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm recognizing Cliff Dunn for a speech in favor. And then, as I said, Kevin Black for a speech against.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Simply put, we're going to have a shifting makeup to this body. There are going to be, I think, rather more people who are present at one meeting but not another, who may be bit by this quirk of Robert's Rules of Order. I will point out that many other rule systems permit just about anybody to make a motion to reconsider. The main reason I wish to have this adopted now, and I'm happy to work on reworking it late in the future, is I want to have this take immediate effect so that people don't get bit by this next week or the week after or the week after that. And I do think this is unusually urgent given the circumstances of this year's meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
We are out of time in speeches 4.
Okay, so we are out of time for speeches in favor of the motion. I'm going to recognize, and it looks like we have about 50 seconds remaining against. The timekeeper will correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to recognize Kevin Black for a speech against. And then if we still have time, I will be recognizing Alan Fleming for another speech against. So Kevin.
Hi, Robert's rules are designed in order to stop the process from being bogged down by motions to reconsider, which can sometimes be sour grapes if it doesn't actually reflect anyone changing their mind. This would allow someone with sour grapes who lost their motion to force the body to spend time reconsidering just by going outside and finding a friend. We should vote against it.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against. And I am now going to recognize Alan Fleming for another speech against. It looks like we have about 20 seconds remaining. Alan Fleming, if you want to go ahead and...
Hi there. Given what Kevin said, I adopt his remarks completely. The problem is Robert's rules, and we don't need to use this at all.
Okay, thank you. We do still have we have about 5 seconds of time remaining against. We do still have 2 people wishing to speak against. I'm going to ask the body, is there any objection to going ahead and moving to a vote on this? If you object to moving to a vote, please use the raise hand in the Zoom. Okay, there is an objection, a couple. So I'm going to go ahead and recognize Kemp Bloom for a speech against. You have 5 seconds.
There we go. 5 seconds. We want to make final decisions. We don't want to bog down a meeting.
That's time.
Thank you, Kent. Okay, so time on both sides of the question has elapsed. I do still see one person wishing to speak against, no speeches in favor, and no other items. I'm just going to give it a little bit to see if anybody's wanting to extend debate. Okay, I don't see any motions coming in to extend debate, so we are going to move to a vote. So the item before us is C.3, reconsideration. Anyone, so we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of C.3. I almost just tried to call for a vote by raising hands. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 22 in favor and 100 against, C.3 fails and is not adopted. So we'll be moving on to C.4. I do have, so if Cliff or Kate wishes to speak in favor of it, you can go ahead and submit a request to speak. I do have a request for some clarifying information. So if you have submitted a request to speak and you no longer wish to request to speak, you can use the retract a request option in the speaker pool tab. So you choose the request to speak option in the text field. Let us know which request, especially if you happen to have multiple open at that time. And then we will take care of retracting that request. It isn't an automatic process, so it is still possible that I might call on you before the moderators are able to retract your request. But if that happens, that's fine, and we'll just move along. And like I said at the beginning of the meeting, if your request to speak has already been archived, you do not need to retract it. We've basically already done that for you. Okay, I'm going to recognize Kate. Oh, and as a reminder, debate time on this item was set to 4 minutes. And so this is C.4, committees include stakeholders on page 18 of your agenda. I'm going to recognize Kate Secor for a speech in favor. And then I'll be recognizing, Mark Godden for a speech against. Kate?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. This is really simple. We send things to committee all the time. That's great. I'm all in favor. It is not always entirely obvious how to join a committee. The people that make motions may not be in the room when the committee is formed. I think that we should say, if you propose something and it gets sent to a committee, you should have the option, like you should by default be appointed to the committee unless you say no, because clearly you care about this and we want committees to be made up of people who care about things. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a speech in favor. I'm recognizing Mark Godden for a speech against, and then I will be recognizing Perry Ann Lurie for a speech in favor. So Mark Godden, go ahead and thank you.
Okay. Mixed Presiding Officer, I speak against this motion because all members of the society are stakeholders in any item that's on the agenda, any item that might go to committee, not only or primarily the people who proposed it. It may be courtesy to place proposers on committees, They may have pertinent expertise, but to make this courtesy a right of first refusal or a privilege would mean granting the relatively few people who make proposals, or even multiple proposals, that much more power and influence over the direction of the society than other members, when the society arguably needs a broader base for considering the future rather than a narrower one. The whole idea of ownership of motions has problematic consequences for collaborative efforts and building trust within the society and for participation overall. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. So that was a speech against C.4. So I'm now going to recognize Perry Ann Lurie for a speech in favor. And then I will be, oh, I won't be doing that. They've retracted. So then I will be, I think we're going to have a motion to call the question after that. But first, Perry Ann Lurie for a speech in favor.
So a lot of the time people make, can you see me? I don't see me, but it's all right.
Yep, I can see and hear.
Okay, I can't see me, but that's okay. A lot of the time people make motions because they care really deeply about something, but they may not be able to even attend the business meeting. You don't have to be an attendee at the business meeting to make a motion, but they have a particular point of view about why they made that motion, and letting them see how the sausage is made in the committee might improve their future motions as well.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. Kayla Allen has moved the previous question to end debate. Is there anybody who wishes to second the motion to end debate? You can raise the hand in the Zoom. Okay, I do see a second. So the motion to end debate has been moved and seconded. There are 2 people still wishing to speak in favor and 2 people still wishing to speak against. So we are going to move to a vote. The motion to end debate is neither debatable nor amendable and requires a 2/3 vote. So we are going to go ahead and open the vote on the motion to end debate. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. So with 89 in favor and 31 against, the motion to end debate passes with a 2/3 majority. And so we are going to move directly to a vote on item C.4. So we are voting on C.4. Committees include stakeholders on page 18 of your agenda. And we can go ahead and open the vote on C.4. Going to leave the vote open for another 15 seconds. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. And with 66 in favor and 57 against, C.4 passes. Cliff or Kate, is it your intention to move the immediate adoption of this? If so, can you just raise your hand in the Zoom? Yes, it is. Okay. So it has been moved and seconded to implement the adoption of C.4 immediately. This requires a 2/3 vote. and is neither debatable nor amendable. So we'll move immediately to a vote. So all those in favor, or once again, trying to call for votes in ways that don't work. So we will open the vote on the immediate adoption of C.4. I mean, to give the Lumi Tech a moment to get that ready. And to be clear, if this fails, this is going to be adopted at the end of this convention regardless. This is just whether or not we are going to immediately adopt it. And so it would be in effect for the remainder of this year's business meeting. I'm going to go ahead and leave the vote open for another 15 seconds. You can go ahead and close the vote. I really appreciate the person who snuck in at the very last second to get us to 83 to 41 instead of 82 to 41. So with just over a 2/3 majority, the vote passes and C.4 is in immediate effect. It still would have been the same result if it was 82 to 41. It just helps when those numbers aren't reading exactly 66.67%. That makes me a little nervous. So C.4 is in immediate effect, so any items that we refer to committee for the remainder of this year's meeting, the rules in C.4 will apply. C.5 is being taken up at the next meeting when we are in executive session. So we are going to move on to the resolutions. The resolutions can be found beginning in page 20 in your agenda. Before we set debate times for these items, so D.1, D.2, and D.3 are all Hugo Award eligibility extensions. As a reminder, per our Constitution, in the event that a potential Hugo Award nominee receives extremely limited distribution in the year of its first publication, its eligibility may be extended for an additional year by a 2/3 vote of the intervening business meeting of WSFS. So that's what these items are. And so I'm going to add, Cliff, I'm going to lower your hand. I think I know what you're doing, but I'm going to lower your hand just so that I can make sure. So is there any objection to taking up items D1, D2, and D3 together? And so having debate and vote on those be all together. There's an objection to taking up D1, D2, and D3 together. Please raise your hand in Zoom. Okay, seeing none, we will take up those items together. So I am proposing the debate times that are on the screen for these items, except for D4 and D5, which I thought I edited, but apparently not. So Warren, can you edit those to say 2 minutes for each of those? So for D1 through D3, I am recommending a debate time of 2 minutes total. For D4, the business meeting, continuation of business meeting study group. There we go. I am recommending 2 minutes. For D5, continuation of the Hugo Administration Process Committee, I'm recommending 2 minutes. For the creation of the Code of Ethics, I'm recommending 6 minutes. For D7, clarifying electronic signatures, I'm recommending 2 minutes. And for D8 generative AI, I'm recommending 8 minutes. I will wait until we're able to get that up on the screen. So where it says 2 minutes each, that actually means 2 minutes total. But the remainder of that is accurate to the debate times that I proposed. So is there any objection to the proposed debate times with the clarification that D1 through D3 is 2 minutes total, not 2 minutes each? Okay, see no objections. Those debate times are adopted. So the first item ahead of us is D1, D2, and D3 together. These are the Hugo eligibility extensions for Pantheon Season 2, The End, and Ronnie, or here, Ronnie, Ranny, Rainey. One of those was probably correct. And they can be found on page 20 of your agenda. I don't know if any of the makers of the motion are wishing to speak in favor of it. I don't see any speeches in favor. Okay, so since I don't see any speeches in favor, I'm going to recognize Nicholas White for a speech against. So Nicholas,
Thank you, Mixed Chairperson. I hate to be that guy. I mean, I really hate to be that guy. I'm instinctively inclined to generosity in these things, but I'm a former Hugo administrator, and this sort of thing does create difficulties for Hugo administrators. And the fact is that for D1, IMDb says that the episodes of the second season of Pantheon were available in the United States from October 2023. So I don't see how it could qualify for an eligibility extension. For D2, the film The End was reviewed by Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, The New York Times, and by Roger Ebert during the calendar year 2024. So the case that nobody knew about it before the start of this year isn't really made out. And for D3, IMDb states that the film Ranny was released in the USA on the 28th of May, 2024. So I really don't see how it qualifies for an eligibility extension. So it's with a slightly heavy heart that I say this, Mixed Chairperson, but I have to say I recommend against eligibility extensions for all three of these.
Okay, thank you.
We are out of time for time against, and Mixed Chairperson, may I speak for despite being a table officer?
Yes, as one of the maker of the motions, you can speak in favor.
Will somebody else time me?
Yep, I'll do it.
Thank you. I cannot speak to Pantheon. That is one that I am less familiar with. But with regards to the movie The End, the limited availability has to do with how many screens and in what cities it was available in. So, for example, it got a Telluride Film Festival release in 2024 and a limited release in no more than 16 cinemas in late December 2024. I do not think that counts as wide availability for The End.
Keep going.
For Ranny, it was available in overseas territories initially, and then a very limited release in North America before hitting streaming. Again, the availability is not just whether or not it was released in New York, but more broadly across North America.
Okay. So time in favor and time elapsed has expired. One moment. Okay, so I do see a motion to divide D1 through D3. So even though the body did not object to taking up D1 through D3 together because these items are not related to each other. It only takes the request of a single member of the body to divide them. So Kate Secor is wishing to divide D1 through D3. And so those are divided. However, because time for debate has elapsed, we will move to a vote on those items unless I see, oh, I do see a point of order from Rafe Richards. So I'm going to recognize Rafe Richards for a point of order.
Mixed Chairperson, thank you. I'm very happy to be told if I'm wrong on this matter. I believe from my reading of 3.4.3 that D3 may be ultra vires, as 3.4.3 authorises an extension for 1 year past date of original release, and per the proposers of this motion, Rani was initially released in 2022.
Yep. Okay, let me just confer with my staff momentarily to make sure we're in agreement. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. This got complicated because we have questions of countries and languages and all sorts of things. So my understanding is that, and my ruling, in fact, is that per 3.4.2 of the Constitution, works originally published outside the United States of America and first published in the United States of America in the previous calendar year shall also be eligible for Hugo Awards. So it was released in India in 2022. Could have been nominated then, but wasn't. Because it wasn't released in America, in the United States, until 2024, it would have been eligible for 2024. And so therefore, under 3.4.3, we can extend that eligibility a year. So I am ruling that D.3 is in order. If there's anybody wishing to appeal the ruling of the chair, please raise your hand in the Zoom. Okay, not seeing any. I'm going to, so that is my ruling. And so we are out of time for speeches in favor and against. And so just to remind us all where we are. So we agreed to take up D.1 through D.3 together as one item. We had our speech in favor and speech against with expired debate time. We then had a motion from Kate Secor to divide the question, which, because these items are not related to each other, it only takes the request of a single member to divide them. We then had the point of order, and I have ruled that D.3 is in order given the circumstances of its release. So because time for debate has expired, we are going to move to a vote, but because we divided D1 through D3, we are going to vote on each of these separately. So the first item that we are going to be voting on, oh, and sorry, to be clear, we have no speeches left in favor or against, and the only other item is calling the question for all of these items. So our first vote is going to be on whether or not to adopt D.1, the Hugo Award eligibility extension for Pantheon Season 2. So we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of D.1. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and leave the vote open for another 15 seconds. In case you haven't figured out yet, when I say that, it is because the vote's a little close, so I want to make sure that everyone who needs to vote has an opportunity to do so. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. With 68 in favor and 62 against, the adoption of D.1 fails, as these require a 2/3 vote. And so D.1 is the eligibility extension for Pantheon Season 2 is not adopted. Okay, the next item is D.2, Hugo eligibility extension for The End. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of D.2. I'm going to leave the vote open for another 15 seconds. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. With 78 in favor and 48 against, D.2 did not reach a 2/3 majority. And so the Hugo Award eligibility extension for The End is not adopted. And finally, we're going to vote on D.3, the adoption of the Hugo Award eligibility extension for Ronnie. We can go ahead and open the vote on D.3. I'm going to leave the vote open for another 15 seconds. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. And with 73 in favor and 53 against, that is not a 2/3 majority. And so we do not adopt the eligibility extension for Ronnie, Rainey. Okay, so that concludes items D1 through D3. So we are now going to move to D4, the continuation of the business meeting study group. Did want to check, believe I saw. Okay. I'm going to recognize Cliff Dunn for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. My parliamentary inquiry on D4/D5, it applies to both, but we're obviously handling it here. Can we handle questions of the charge and or leadership of the business meeting study group later on, depending on what is sent there, even if we adopt the extension in principle now?
So basically you're asking, so can we amend the charge to the committee later as we refer things to them? So the act of referring items to that committee would inherently modify the charge to them. So like that would happen. If the adoption or not adoption of other items sort of impacts what we want to ask those committees to look at, I mean, I believe technically we can, we can adopt a resolution to charge the committee with something else. That's certainly allowable. I don't believe there's a specific mechanism to do so that does not require like technically a bit of parliamentary maneuvering, but that also seems like the sort of thing where we could probably ask for unanimous consent of the body, depending on how things are going, because putting something in the committee's charge doesn't require them to handle it one way or another. It just says, we'd like you to look at this, please. So my answer to your inquiry is like, yes, probably, depending on exactly how we choose to handle it. Okay, so we are on to item D.4, continuation of the business meeting study group, which is found on page 21. Debate time at this has been set for 2 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Kat Corbetti for a speech in favor as one of the makers.
Thank you, Ms. Chairperson. As one of the makers of this motion and proposed co-chair of this committee, I believe we need to be reauthorized to continue our work as outlined in the report, which I also helped draft. It took several months of conversation to reach a point of defining our various areas, and some progress was made in each, as can be seen in the report. With the subcommittees in place and a clear area of focus for each, it is quite clear what our tasks are for the following year. I am confused about this charge question. Thank you.
Okay, that was a speech in favor. And though you didn't make it an official parliamentary inquiry, I'm just going to try and answer the question I think you have, which is that, you know, if we adopt this resolution with this specific scope, is there a way to, depending on what happens later in the meeting, alter that scope? And to which the answer is that, like, if specific items get referred to the committee, that inherently alters the scope. And we could also, you know, if because of the specific confluence of what gets adopted or not, we feel that we need to change this charge to include a new thing or whatever, we could adopt a resolution to do so. Okay,
thank you.
That was a speech in favor of D.4. I don't see anybody else wishing to speak on this item. I will give you all a few seconds to see if anybody else wishes to speak on D.4. Okay, not seeing anybody else wishing to speak. So we will put D.4, the continuation of the business meeting study group, to a vote, and we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of D.4. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the poll. With 120 in favor and 6 against, the adoption of D.4 passes, and the business meeting study group is continued as described in D.4. Okay. The next item is the continuation of the Hugo Administration Process Committee. I have set debate time on this item, or we have set debate time on this item rather, at 2 minutes. Believe Bree Reeves is here. And so Bree, if you could raise your hand in the chat, and we will recognize you for a speech in favor. Before you do start speaking though, I see a question about how people volunteer for this and other committees. You can, if you have the contact info for the chair of the committee itself, you can contact them directly, or you can contact the business meeting staff at which email do I want you all to use? At businessmeeting@seattlein2025.org. Any of the other business meeting emails also get to us. But you can use businessmeeting@seattlein2025.org to express your interest of being on a committee, and we will pass that along. We won't do that in perpetuity. That will probably only be through the end of August, probably. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and recognize Bree for a speech in favor of D.5.
Okay, Mixed Chair, can you hear me all right?
I can.
Fantastic. So the Hugo Administration Process Committee was created last business meeting in order to look at the business administration procedures in the wake of the last couple of years. The thing that we found most notably is that there's a real informality in a lot of ways. Some of that is great because it allows flexibility, and some of it is not, because it creates ambiguity. So in addition to a couple of code of ethics suggestions that we have created and that are going to be discussed.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. I don't see anybody else wishing to speak on this. I'm going to give you all a little bit of time to see if there's anybody else wishing to speak. Okay, I don't see anybody else wishing to speak on this item, so we are going to move to a vote. So we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of D.5, continuation of the Hugo Administration Process Committee. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. With 117, 17 in favor and 112 against, the adoption of D.5 passes, and the Hugo Administration Process Committee is continued as described in D.5. Okay, the next item that we have is, yes, to be clear, that was 12 against, not 112 against. Apologies if that's what I said. Okay, the next item is D.6, creation of code of ethics, found on page 22 of your agenda. Debate time on this item has been set to 6 minutes. Bree, if you are wishing, you already have your hand raised. Great. Wait, and so I'm going to recognize Bree Reeves for a speech in favor as the chair of the proposing committee.
All right, as of right now, how it stands, there is no code of ethics formally adopted by the Hugo Administration Committee, meaning that the administrator doesn't really have a strict set of duties or ethics to adhere to. And we think this is a very easy bridge for us to cross, something for us that we can actively solve that will help prevent some of the issues that have been going on in the last few years.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of this resolution. Hold on, I see a question. Yeah, so where it says, I can't believe we didn't catch this before, where it says to bring to the 2025 business meeting a code of ethics, we're going to take it as an editorial correction that means the 2026 meeting should have a code of ethics, unless Bree tells me that that was not their intention and they meant for somebody to present something later at this meeting. Since Bree's not raising her hand to speak, I'm going to take that as yes, that should be 2026. So that's an editorial correction. We don't need to vote on that. Let's see. And I'm going to recognize Kent Bloom for a speech against. Kent Bloom, you can go ahead and raise your hand. Yep.
Mixed Chairperson.
Yep.
I would like to ask a question and make a comment. First, I don't know who the administrative officers of WSFS are. As far as I know, there are none. the Hugo Administration Committee belongs to the Worldcon, which is not controlled by the business meeting. And we've gotten completely carried away with this attempt to micromanage Worldcons from the business meeting, especially given the fact that if they ignore us, we can't do anything about it. So I think this is a really silly thing to do. So I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against. I do have a parliamentary inquiry about how this interacts with Rule 7.7. So to be clear, so Rule 7.7 is about when a proposal is referred to committee. When we say, instead of voting on this item at this meeting, we would like a committee to go take a look at it and figure out how to, what should happen. This resolution creates a committee with a specific task. So the new rule regarding who gets to be on committees does not apply to this resolution because it's not referring a proposal to committee. It's creating a committee and tasking that committee. If that does not answer the speaker's question, you can go ahead and raise your hand in the Zoom to indicate that you need to be requested or recognized for a further inquiry. But if I don't see that, then I am going to recognize Ron Oakes for a speech in favor, and then Perry Ann Lurie for a speech against. So Ron Oakes.
Okay, I am strongly in favor of this. We have had a situation where the assumed ethics of the science fiction fandom community were violated. Prior to this, I witnessed a former Hugo administrator regularly joking about fixing the Hugo Awards and then turned around and fixed the Hugo Awards. And without a code of ethics, which most organizations have, we had to resort to all sorts of awkward and other things to kind of backwards go in and say, hey, there was a violation here. There is nothing saying that WSFS cannot create a code of ethics and say this is the code of ethics that applies to key positions of the committees that the unincorporated society is chartering. And that is the Convention Committee, the Hugo Committee, the Business Meeting, and the Mark Protection Committee. Those committees are chartered by the Constitution to execute the business of the unincorporated society. And we can write a code of ethics. A code of ethics almost never has any real teeth. And we know that. The unincorporated society has no teeth. But by specifying a code of ethics, we are writing a line saying, this is the ethics to which the World Science Fiction Society holds the committees we are chartering. And we obviously need to have that because those ethics fell down big time. Thank you. I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. I'm going to ask the timekeeper how we're doing on time. Yeah, and I thank you. Sorry, Olav, one moment. I am going to, I should have stepped in there, and my apologies. I got distracted. I am going to remind folks that we need to be careful in debate about making accusations or assertions about things that A, did not happen at the meeting, and so we do not have concrete knowledge of, and that B, if they do need to be discussed in executive session when it is only the members of WSFS who are privy to that conversation. So I'm just going to make sure that we remember that moving forward. Okay, Olav, where are we on time?
Mixed chairperson, we have 50 seconds. That's 50 seconds remaining for time in favor, and 2 minutes and 15 seconds for time against.
Okay, thank you. I am going to recognize Elspeth Kovar for a parliamentary inquiry before I recognize Perry Ann Lurie for a speech against. Elspeth, if you would like to raise your hand in Zoom and we can. Yep.
Unfortunately, we've actually gotten past what I was going to ask as a parliamentary, so I sent in something different because I couldn't figure out how to cancel my request.
Okay. So you no longer have a parliamentary inquiry?
No,
okay.
I just,
Thank you.
that's it.
Okay. So I'm going to recognize Perry Ann Lurie for a speech against. And then I'm going to recognize Farah Mendelson for a speech in favor.
While I'm not opposed to creating a code of ethics, I'm not sure that we have the expertise to be able to do that properly. And we may need to reach out to people who are experts in writing codes of ethics to help draft this. And I see nothing of that in this charge to this committee.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to recognize Farah for a speech in favor of this motion. And then I will be recognizing Cliff Dunn after that.
My experience is that when you're actually concerned about something going wrong, it's a lot easier to raise concerns if you have a process to follow and a code to check.
Okay. Thank you. That was a speech in favor. I'm going to recognize Cliff Dunn.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move to postpone this definitely into the executive session.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion? So the motion is to postpone this definitely. Okay, I do see a second. Thank you. So the motion is to postpone the consideration of D.6 until we are in executive session, which we expect to be at the beginning of the next meeting. But if the timing changes, then the timing of when this is postponed to would change. Okay. It has been seconded. This can be debated, but I'm going to ask the body, I'm just going to ask the body, is there any objection to immediately adopting this postponement and postponing it until the executive session? So if you object to postponing this, okay, I do see an objection. Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask, is there any objection to moving to an immediate vote on this postponement without debate? Is there any objection to immediately voting on the postponement? Okay, I don't see any objection, so we are going to immediately vote on postponing D.6 until we are in executive session. So we can go ahead and open the vote. This is on whether or not to postpone D6 until we are in executive session. And this requires a majority vote if I didn't say that. Okay, I'm going to leave the vote open for another 15 seconds. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 71 in favor and 62 against, this is postponed until we are in executive session. So we will take up this item when we are in executive session, which we expect to be at the beginning of the next meeting. Before somebody asks, I don't know exactly when in the executive session we will take it up. I'll figure that out. And part of what I'm doing is we're going to be posting recaps after each meeting of sort of what was handled and what's coming up next. And so I will make sure that that information is in that recap. And as always, you all can choose to take things up at a different time, doing something similar to what we just did, in fact. Okay, so D6 is postponed until we are in executive session. So we are going to move to we're going to move to item D7, clarifying electronic signatures, which can be found on page 23 of your agenda. Debate time on this item has been set to 2 minutes. Is there somebody from the nitpicking and fly specking committee who wishes to speak in favor? And one moment, I have a question. So there's a question. So in the resolution itself, it should say to clarify the meaning of section 4.4.2, not to clarity. That's a editorial change, and we will take that correction. I do not see anyone wishing to speak in favor or against D7. I'm going to give you all about 10 more seconds to submit any requests to speak. If there aren't any, we'll move to a vote. Okay. With nobody wishing to speak, we are going to vote on the adoption of D7, clarifying electronic signatures. So we can go ahead and open the vote. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 127 in favor and 5 against, D.7 passes and is adopted. And so we are instructed to, ERA is instructed, the secretary is instructed to make that change when we prepare the official documents after the conclusion of the meeting. Okay, the next item ahead of us is D.8, generative AI, which is found on page 23 of your agenda. Debate time on this item has been set at 8 minutes. If the maker of the motion, which is if Els or Priya would like to speak in favor of it, if you can please. Okay, I see Els, so we can go ahead and recognize Els for a speech in favor.
Hello, everyone. I assume you can all hear me.
Yep.
Hello, I'm Els. My pronouns are they, them. I assume you've read the motion, and we've all seen the kerfuffle surrounding the use of AI by the Seattle, I can't say that word, the administration of the current Worldcon, where they used AI to vet participants. And they've apologized for this, which we really liked, which we thought was very good, but we felt like it would be important that the business meeting made a statement on this to show that we, as science fiction and fantasy fans, care about the ethical use of technology, especially technology that has so negatively harmed and impacted many of the creators among us. We know we can't make demands of future Worldcons, but we would really hope that this encourages them to make careful, ethical, and thoughtful choices regarding the use of AI. And we also hope that this will help rebuild the trust in the international community that Worldcons have lost through this action. I yield.
Great, thank you. That was a speech in favor. I am going to recognize Chris Rose for a speech against. And I will just remind folks very quickly, else, nothing you said was a problem, but just because it came up on the previous item, and because this refers to something that happened fairly recently, same thing goes. Debate needs to be civil. We're not allowed to cast aspersions on other folks as part of the debate on this. Okay, I'm going to recognize Chris Rose for a speech against.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to hopefully be relatively brief. I'm against this motion for several reasons. First, I don't think that it has any capability to have teeth. There's no actual substantive change to a Worldcon's behavior that can be generated by this motion. Second, I think that the scope of large language model technology is actually in nearly everybody's day-to-day life at this point. And while I agree that the building of the models that were originally formed into ChatGPT were unethical and definitely harmed the artists and authors who created the content that is in them, I don't think that making a broad statement about all future use of the technology is something that the business meeting should do, regardless of the current state of this space. I yield.
Thank you. That was a speech against. I do not see any. Oh, do you have the high priority item? Okay, I'm going to. Okay, I don't have another speech in favor. I'm going to recognize Alan Fleming. I believe you have a parliamentary inquiry, but I think you also have a motion that you want to make. But you were next for both things. So, Alan Fleming, I'm going to go ahead and recognize for a motion, and then if you have a parliamentary inquiry as well, you can also make that.
With the, if it is all right with the chair, I would like to do the parliamentary inquiry first.
Yes, that would be my preference too.
Thank you. I am looking at the language of this, and I do not see that the language of this is directive of WSFS. Would it be possible for you to rule what or whether this language is acceptable to us as a body? I cannot see how it affects or how it amends our rules or
Yep, thank you. Okay, so so that was actually, I'm taking that as a point of order, that the resolution is not in order because it doesn't directly amend anything. And I'm ruling that it is in order. So we do adopt resolutions sometimes that do not. So a resolution in general is, with the exception of the eligibility extension ones, is non-binding. It doesn't require the Worldcon or WSFS to do something. We have to amend our standing rules or constitution normally to do that. But we are allowed to pass resolutions that recommend or encourage or, I mean, to put it bluntly, state our feelings on a thing. So in the past, the business meeting has adopted resolutions about what size the font should be on badges at the convention, and whether or not we agreed with the decision for Pluto to be a planet. And so this is in keeping with that. It is stating, it's the business meeting going on the record of their feelings and their thoughts on generative AI. And while it is not binding, it is encouraging future Worldcons in how they handle generative AI. So it is in order. And now I believe you also had another motion that you wanted to make. And just to be clear, because I know I have folks who know the parliamentary procedure, Alan's not jumping the line by being recognized for a high priority item. He had a high priority item, and also he was the next person in line for a regular priority item as well. So, Alan, did you have a motion that you were wanting to make as well?
On the basis of that ruling, I withdraw the motion.
Okay, sounds good. So the last thing we had was a speech against the resolution. So I'm going to recognize Holly Walrath for a speech in favor. And then after that, I will recognize Nicholas White for a speech against. So Holly, if you can raise your hand in the Zoom, and then we can unmute you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Sorry, my video is not going to work. Yeah, I want to speak in favor of this. I think that a lot of reputational damage has been done to both Worldcon and the business meeting and everyone involved because of, kind of the existing AI that has already been used. And I think it would be valuable to have this for future meetings. So that's what I think.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. And I'm now recognizing Nicholas White for a speech against. And yeah, I'm going to recognize Nicholas White for a speech against, and then figure out who I'm recognizing next.
Thank you very much, Mixed Chairperson. Not to go on about this at great length, I mean, I'm completely aligned with this resolution. I resigned from this year's Worldcon committee over precisely this issue. However, I'm not sure that it's appropriate for the business meeting to declare itself one way or the other on this. I think that this is a very fast-moving issue, and I would prefer that the business meeting restricts itself to improving the rules, which, dear God, need improvement of the way that the organisation operates. And I think this is not. I'd rather we didn't become a debating society. I'd rather that we sort of concentrate on what's really going on. So I would prefer to vote against this, even though, as I said, politically, I'm completely in favour of the sentiments expressed. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a speech against. Okay, I'm going to recognize Kayla Allen for an amendment.
Mixed chair, Kayla Allen, she, her. Mixed chair. Just a moment, please. You're muted. Just a moment, please. No, the TV's muted. Mute the TV, please. I'm muted. Mute the TV, please. All right, you're gonna have to take the next one. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
You're gonna have to take the next one.
Let's see. Okay. Just checking when folks were. Okay. I am going to recognize Cliff Dunn for a speech in favor. And then Keith Jewell for a speech against.
Cliff Dunn, he, him. Long story short, it's not just ChatGPT. It's Midjourney. This is not a case of there being a single poisonous tree that we're picking from. We've got a whole garden of poison trees out there, a whole grove of them. I think we need to, so I think the business means stepping up and saying, be careful about who you pick. Only ethically source any AI/LLMs that you're going to use is perfectly within our remit. It is a very ripe thing, and if we need to weigh in some different way in the future, we can do that.
Okay, thank you. I'm now going to recognize Keith Jewell for a speech against.
I'm going to parallel a lot of what Nicholas White said. I am politically opposed to the piracy and just general nature of the way LLMs have been trained. However, I believe that if WSFS wants to get into the territory of making specific technical requirements on the organizers of the Worldcon, those requirements themselves should be specific, documented, and discussed. And I don't believe this does that.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against. Timekeeper, how are we doing?
We have exactly 1 minute left for and against.
Well done, you all, and splitting things up perfectly. Okay, I am going to recognize Kayla Allen again for an amendment.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. We did get the external speaker muted. Mixed Chair, the section of the motion, that's all the sections that begin with the word whereas are known as a preamble. I believe that preambles weaken resolutions. There are people here who might be prepared to accept the resolution portions, but find the whereases to be potentially negative to the whole proposal. I therefore move to strike the entire preamble from the motion, and therefore, if it passes, we would consider only the resolved clauses.
I'm going to ask,
and that's my speech if it's seconded, okay?
right. Before I restate the motion, I'm going to ask, so the first, be it resolves, says these creatives, referring to the last whereas. So can I suggest that your motion be to strike the whereases and to also, where it says these creatives, change it to say honor the work of creatives whose work or whose work has been, oh nope, this got more complicated than I thought because of English. Okay, I don't have a perfect solution, so I'm just going to take the amendment as it is. Sorry. So I am, just to be really clear, I think those were seconds, but I'm just going to ask again if there's a second. Please raise your hand in the Zoom. Okay, I do see seconds. Thank you. I always want to be sure that I'm not counting something as a second that wasn't. Okay, so it has been moved and seconded to strike the whereases from the resolution. We have, how much time did that speech take, Olaf?
30 seconds.
Okay, so we have a total of 1:30 remaining. And so that time will be split evenly on each side for the amendment. And so if we can go ahead and open up the second order speaking pool. If there is anyone wishing to speak on the amendment, we've had a speech in favor. And okay, I'm going to recognize Chris Rose for a speech against. So to be clear, the item ahead of us is the Allen Amendment to D8, which would strike all of the whereases. And so I'm recognizing Chris Rose for a speech against the Allen Amendment.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. I would like to not strike this content because I think we should vote on the expressed intent of the resolution as it's stated, as opposed to a watered down version that is attempting to be the least offensive possible. Thank you. I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against. I do see a parliamentary inquiry about second amendments. Per our rules, second amendments are not in order. Although we can always choose to suspend the rules and do that if we want to. Hold on, I'm trying to review. Okay, I have like multiple suggestions for how to phrase the first be it resolved to make it work. So, okay. Okay, so from L's, so I'm going to state this, and then I'm going to ask for unanimous consent of the body to incorporate this change into the Allen Amendment. So in the first be it resolved to strike these creatives and have it say instead the creatives in the science fiction and fantasy community, comma, especially those negatively impacted by the utilization of their work by generative AI. Of their work, yep, by generative AI. Okay. Is there any objection to incorporating that? Okay, there is. Okay, so there is an objection. So go ahead and copy and paste that, Warren, but then remove it because second order amendments are not in order. And so unless somebody submits something indicating that they wish to suspend the rules and do a second order amendment, that would not be in order. Okay, I am going to recognize Cliff Dunn for a motion.
I sincerely thought I was already done for today. Mixed Chair, I move to refer this to a committee to report back at the next legislative day to resolve this to propose language to fix this.
Okay, the motion has been made to refer D.8 to a committee that would report back at the next session. So that would be the July 13th session. I do see a second. If anybody wishes to speak on the motion to refer, please go ahead and submit that now. Moderators, this would be the third order speaking pool. So this is so the item before us is the motion to refer D8 and the Allen Amendment to D8 to a committee to report back to the next session. Per 7.7, whatever it was. Yeah, the new 7.7. The two proposing members, so Els and Priya, would be automatically appointed to that committee. Cliff, do you have any objection to chairing that committee as the maker of the motion to refer?
Thanks. I'm willing to chair that. Could I please, since I know several folks sent in language, I'd like a list of those folks so that we can start firing emails back and forth as quickly as possible.
Yep, we will get that to you after the meeting's over. But yep, we will get that to you. Okay, so the motion would be, the committee would be comprised of Cliff as the chair, Els and Priya, and anybody else that the chair appoints. And we will get you the list of folks who had suggested wording if this passes. Anybody else wishing to be on the committee if it passes, I would say just probably put something in the on topic channel of the Discord so that folks can get started on that. Okay, so the item ahead of us is the motion to refer to committee. Olav, how much time do we have remaining in total?
In total for the full motion?
Yeah, how much time is left on D8 in its entirety?
Total of 55 seconds.
Okay. Is there any objection to moving immediately to a vote on the motion to refer to committee? If you do object to immediately moving to a vote, please use the raise hand function in the Zoom. Okay, I do not see any objection, so we are going to move immediately to a vote. So to be clear, the item ahead of us is the motion to refer, the motion is to refer D.8 and the underlying and the Allen Amendment to committee. And yes, it's being pointed out to me that Kayla Allen should also be on that committee as the maker of the amendment. And so I am also going to appoint Kayla Allen to that committee. So the membership of the committee is chaired by Cliff Dunn, Priya, Els, Kayla Allen, and anybody else that Cliff wishes, or the committee as a whole wishes to add, and we'll get you the names of who had language suggestions. So all those, I'm trying to do it again. We can go ahead and open the vote on referring D8 and the Allen amendment to committee. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. So with 89 in favor and 36 against, this is referred to committee to report back at the next session. Okay, so it is 2:30 and we have gotten through, for definitions of that, the standing rules and resolutions. As you can tell, we did not have time to tackle the agenda setting for the new constitutional amendments. I'm going to determine what, if any, process we will use for those and make a decision and inform folks. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, because we want to respect the meeting's time and not take up time on processes that aren't useful, but we also want to try to know what's ahead of us. So the next meeting is going to begin with the report from the investigation committee, and will be in an executive session. We will be taking up C5, D6, and D9 through 12, not necessarily in that order. And then after the executive session, we will move on to possibly some sort of agenda setting. Once again, I'll make a decision on that and make sure that it gets announced. And always, as always, you all have the ability to change course on those sorts of things if you think I've made the wrong decision. But then the next item would be ratifications of business passed on. As a reminder, if you were nominated for the MPC, and we will get that list in the Discord as well, if it isn't already, you can email bm-candidate@seattlein2025.org to give us your consent to nomination. And you can also send us a brief statement of no more than 300 words that we will post in the Discord about why you would like to be on the MPC. At this time, or very soon, we are going to enable the minutes from the executive session in 2024 and the full report from the investigation committee to be available in the documents tab. These items, because of the confidentiality involved, are not available for download. They are viewable only within the Lumi platform. The Lumi platform is going to remain open over the next week for folks to be able to log in and view those documents. We will be closed from a time that I have noted. There we go. The meeting will be closed from noon Pacific on Tuesday, July 8th through noon Pacific on Thursday, July 10th, so that we can do some back-end technical stuff. But other than that, the platform will remain open so that people can view those documents. I will just remind everyone that the contents of those documents and the executive session is confidential only to WSFS members. So please do not share that information or what happens in the executive session with folks who are not WSFS members. But anyone who is a WSFS member is it's not confidential to folks who are WSFS members. That's what I was trying to say. Okay, I believe that is all the announcements I have. I'm now going to see if there's anybody on my team who is going to jump in and tell me I forgot a thing. Okay, none of my staff are telling me that I've screwed up. We are in recess, or adjourned rather, sorry, until 9 a.m. Pacific on July 13th for our next meeting. Thank you all. And as a reminder, the Discord's going to remain open for 3 hours from this point. Thank you.